Hi everyone, I'm Celeste. Welcome to my BookTube channel, A Reader's Almanac, and today I am just doing a rather quick wrap-up for the month of August and kind of a summer wrap-up. It's been a pretty good reading month. Before I begin, I do want to say thank you to Deea of Novel Ideea, who sent me this lovely book, and it is a copy of The Abandoned by Paul Gallico. Deea was kind enough to mail this beautiful edition from NYRB, and so I just love it. I'm looking forward to reading this, and inside she did include a very nice, sweet little card with a message on it. I guess it goes this way, with birdies, which I love. And so, yeah, I've read several books by Paul Gallico, and my favorite was Thomasina that I've read so far. And this is another tale about a cat, and I'll just read you the little description on the back here. I don't know much about this book, but it says, London hasn't been kind to Peter, a lonely boy whose parents are always out at parties. And though Peter would love to have a cat for company, his nanny won't hear of it. One day, as Peter is walking out the door, he sees a truck bearing down on a tabby. Dashing out to save the cat, he is struck by the oncoming car himself. And then everything is different when Peter comes to. He has become a cat himself, and his cat companion, Jenny, takes charge of Peter and shows him she teaches him the ropes of how to be a cat and how to survive in the big savage city of London. So it sounds a little bit brutal, a little bit delightful, maybe perhaps bittersweet, I don't know. But thank you to Deea. I love the book and I love the card. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading that. And then next up, I was delighted to read another book by Ibbotson, who has fast become one of my favorite authors. This particular one is a children's book called The Star of Kazan. And the first book I read by Ibbotson was The Morning Gift. Now that's actually, I found out, considered to be one of her best books. And I would probably agree with that. I mean, it was a 5-star read for me. So any other book I'm reading by Ibbotson, I'm not actually expecting it to be quite as good as The Morning Gift, but this one was quite charming. As I said, it's a children's book. And yeah, I really, really enjoyed my time with this. It's a wonderful book for summer as well. And I do have some notes down here, so I'll be referring to those. So in 1896, two women, a cook and a maid who work in a household in Vienna, Austria, are taking sort of a walk in the foothills of the mountains, and they stop by a little pilgrim church in the Alps to rest and to give thanks. And there before them lies a little swaddled baby who has been left. She's a foundling, and they take her home. They do try to take her to a convent first, but the nuns can't take anyone in because everybody is sick there at the moment and they don't want to get the baby sick. So the cook and the maid bring the baby back to their residence. They work for 3 siblings who are elderly, and they're professors, and so they're very eccentric Viennese professors. And so they say, well, the baby can stay for a little bit. And it's just a charming story as the little girl Annika grows up, because they've named her Annika. She does love who she lives with, and she's grateful for everything she has. She's made some friends in Vienna that she plays with and all of that. But she does have this daydream where she wonders about her birth mother, what she was like, and she does dream that she comes swooping in one day wearing her elegant furs, driving up in a limousine or a carriage, and saying, "I'm your real mother," and taking her away. Well, be careful what you wish for, because something very similar to that actually ends up happening, and that's not a spoiler. It's written in the promotional materials for the book, so you know that that's going to happen. And the mother introduces herself and says, "You're my long lost daughter, and I'm going to take you away, and you're going to live in a big wealthy castle or Spital in Germany." And so Annika goes and lives with her, but it's a very queer place in a desolate, gray location, and all is not as it seems. And as usual, Eva Ibbotson writes in a beautiful sort of fairy tale-esque style. And Annika meets some of the people near the castle that they move into with her mother. And it's just a beautiful story. Now, I will say that this one was a little bit longer. And I think it's like, let's see, how many pages? It's almost 400 pages, and I do think it would have benefited from an editing and cutting out of maybe like 50 to 75 pages. But, and what else? I think there was a missed opportunity at the end of this one in talking about motherhood, themes of motherhood and who raises us and who's our real mother. But nevertheless, there were some beautiful, heartwarming scenes in this, some exciting scenes. It always reminds me of some of the old movies that we used to watch, like The Sound of Music and Chitty Chitty Bang Bang and things like that. Some of the things that happen in Eva Ibbotson's stories. There are also in Eva Ibbotson's works often great depictions of theaters, the ballet, the Philharmonic, and the rich culture of Vienna. And there's a lovely, lovely scene in this book that describes a theater where a woman is in a ballet, and she is representing the spirit of winter, and she's suspended above the stage, and she's strewing snow down on the winter time in what's supposed to be Russia, depicted in the play that's going on, or the ballet. And it's just lovely. And also in this book, you will learn a lot about the white stallions of Lippizan, and that is also spectacular. And it almost tempts me to dig out my copy of Marguerite Henry's White Stallions of Lippizan, because it's just so evocative, the way she talks about the airs above the ground and all of that, the different moves that the horses make. Lovely written. She has such a beautiful writing style. She's one of those authors who, whenever I read anything by her, I just naturally smile while I'm reading. And her work just gives me such a warm feeling, and I love her, the morals of her stories, I guess is a way I could put it. But this was definitely so worthwhile, and I just love these particular editions with this artwork on the front. These are from Pan Macmillan. So thoroughly enjoyed my time with this. The Star of Kazan by Eva Ibbotson. The next book that I really, really enjoyed reading in the month of August was On the Banks of Plum Creek by Laura Ingalls Wilder. This is the fourth book in Laura Ingalls Wilder's Treasured Little House series, and it was the recipient of a Newbery Honor Book, and I am doing a reread of all the Newbery Award winners and honor books, so this counts as one of the honor books. And of course it's got Garth Williams classic illustrations, and it's the adventures of Laura and her family. They leave the prairie, Little House on the Prairie, and they travel in their covered wagon to Walnut Grove, Minnesota, where they settle down in a new home. And Pa, on the banks of Plum Creek, Pa fixes up a new home made of sod with real glass windows and a hinged door, and there was already like a dugout there, but he fixes it up nicely because he's a master carpenter, of course. And Laura and Mary go to school in Walnut Grove, and you know, misfortunes come. There is a grasshopper plague, there's a terrible blizzard, and they all work hard together to survive all of that. I'm rereading all of the Little House books, and as usual, Laura Ingalls Wilder does not disappoint. They're very simply told tales, but I am just in awe at the ingenuity and craftsmanship that Charles Ingalls and Ma Ingalls, Carolyn, show, the way they help their family survive the winters. It's kind of like a love letter to Ma and Pa as much as it is Laura's story. But it's just incredible. It's like a masterclass in pioneer woodworking, cooking, building, everything from the sod dugout next to the creek to surviving the brutal plague of grasshoppers. And you know, you may not in today's society think much about, you know, grasshoppers or a blizzard, but it could wipe out their livelihood because everything they had was invested in their wheat crop. So, you know, when the wheat crop failed, Pa had to leave in his old holey shoes and walk to find work. And I mean literally like walk through several states to find work. And he would write a letter home every couple weeks to let him know how he was doing. And sometimes they wouldn't hear from him and would worry that he was dead. So even though they're beautifully told children's stories on one level, they're tales of survival and resilience on another. And in addition to On the Banks of Plum Creek, I also found at a very reasonable price Little House in the Ozarks, and this is by Laura Ingalls Wilder as well. And this is a collection of rediscovered writings by Laura Ingalls Wilder. And she wrote in local magazines and regional magazines and in the newspaper, and just did a lot of other writing. And these were things that she wrote between the years of 1911 and 1925, and just on all different kinds of topics like motor cars and highways. That was a huge change in their lives when those things came into being. And she had moved to Mansfield, Missouri. She talks about conservation of forests. She talks at length about women and their voice in politics. There was one entry in here, I don't think I marked it, but I found it fascinating. It was about people who had left their picnic garbage behind them on the prairie and how she found it on the banks of a creek. And, you know, napkins and food garbage and things like that instead of picking up after themselves. And I get angry at the same things today when I'm taking a walk on one of the forest trails around here and see someone who, you know, like threw away a mask or a diaper or, you know, like the wrapper from a McDonald's burger or something like that. It really irritates me when I see garbage like that on public land and public trails. And she had the same concerns way, way back in the day. So it was also interesting. It got me thinking because the tone of this is quite different than the tone in On the Banks of Plum Creek. And I started to become really interested in teasing out the difference between Laura Ingalls Wilder's voice and the voice of her daughter, Rose Wilder Lane. And so I had recently purchased a vintage magazine from February 1945. Here it is, and it's sort of falling apart. The staples are very rusty. That's a tip for you. If you ever buy a vintage magazine, be very careful of the sort of rusty staples, because if you cut yourself, that's not a good thing. But in here, we've got writers such as Dorothy Canfield Fisher and Rose Wilder Lane, and they write on a variety of topics. They were columnists in magazines such as Women's Day, and I became really interested in learning how the voice of Rose Wilder Lane varied from her mother. And so I was just trying to find the article here. Here, by the way, is Book Recommendations for Children by Dorothy Canfield Fisher. And here is a piece on compulsory military training by Rose Wilder Lane. Trying to hold it up. See how it's falling apart here? But these magazines are fascinating. But in any event, Rose Wilder Lane was a frequent contributor to these. Now, if you don't want to, collect vintage magazines, but you would like to read some of the journalistic writings and columns that Rose Wilder Lane did, you can find them in this book, The Rediscovered Writings of Rose Wilder Lane, Literary Journalist. And this is edited by Amy Mattson Lauters. And there's Rose Wilder Lane on the cover there. This is a little hardcover edition that I picked up on eBay. And this has a bunch of fascinating articles on just so many different topics. And one in particular that held my attention, because I'm really, I just love anything that's about the Great War, World War I, and that era. And so she wrote a piece called A Bit of Gray in a Blue Sky, The Beautiful Story of the Bird That Saved the Lost Battalion. And that was published in Ladies' Home Journal, August 1919. And it says, this piece illustrates what would become a favorite technique of Rose Wilder Lane's. She would pick an unusual character in her story through which the story could be told. This adherence to an absolute point of view would become one of her hallmarks. Here, Lane tells the true story of a homing pigeon that saved the lives of an American battalion cut off from behind enemy lines in Europe when it managed to fly through gunfire to deliver a message giving the soldiers position. The short factual report here becomes a haunting metaphor for soldiers at war, because it's told mainly from the viewpoint of the pigeon. And I'll just read you the first sentence. He woke every morning before the sun lifted its rim above the rooftops of Paris and gilded their edges with its first pale gold. So it tells the story from a pigeon's point of view, a carrier pigeon, who delivered a message that saved members of a lost battalion during one of the skirmishes of World War I. And you can just immediately tell the difference between Laura Ingalls Wilder's writing style and Rose Wilder Lane's writing style. And it's interesting to see how the two merge together in the editing of books like On the Banks of Plum Creek. I think that the part that's pure Laura Ingalls is the way Ma and Pa talk and the kind of plain sounding speech. Just the matter-of-fact, everyday, brass tacks, common sense language. And the parts about the chores and the traditions and the hardships, the reportage, the making it into a beautiful story that is told from a particular viewpoint that describes the bigger picture and brings it all together with beautiful language and creates heartwarming scenes. In my personal opinion, that's all Rose Wilder Lane. That's at least what I think. Do I know for sure? No, I'm only giving you what my inkling is, my suspicion, my hunch. But I think she brought the beauty and the polished storytelling into it. And I think Laura brought the seeds of all the stories and tales of her ma and pa and sisters and life when she was little. And Rose Wilder Lane just definitely polished it and actually turned it into a compelling, heartwarming, heartbreaking, cherished set of stories. And finally, to wrap up my summer reading for the month of August and summer 2025, as you all know, I'm doing a big rereading project of all of the Nancy Drew books, and I am a Nancy Drew fanatic. I am a Girl Sleuth fanatic. I've done numerous videos on this topic on my channel in the past, and will be bringing you more this fall. But in my rereading of all the Nancy Drew books, I made it up to, so far, number 14, The Whispering Statue. And this was a perfect book to end the summer reading season with, because Nancy and her friends combine their detective work with summer fun at a seaside resort. And there is even a nearly disastrous boating accident. Nancy, Bess, and George go to solve a mystery on the Atlantic coast, and they stay at a yacht club. And while they are there, Nancy becomes involved in a sailing competition, and one of the mysteries that they're trying to solve is who stole this statue, which is a statue which used to sit outside of the yacht club but was stolen. And it's not just any statue, it is a whispering statue, because when you come up close to it, you can hear whispering sounds as if the statue is talking. And so this was just really fun. It was engaging. It held my interest all the way through. In terms of the number of stars I would give it, it's always hard with Nancy Drew because I sort of rate those differently than I would rate other like novels, adult books, and things like that. Yeah, I think I would give it probably 4 stars out of 5. It wasn't like up there with, like, say, The Hidden Staircase, but it was good. It was a very solid, decent read. It held my interest all the way through. I did have one nit with it. I found it really unbelievable when Nancy suddenly shows that she knows everything there is about sailing and starts to code switch and talk in nautical language and sailing language. It becomes a bit much. I could understand if she used 1 or 2 terms, or if she was learning about sailing, but she's just immediately like this proficient pro sailing and knows all the terms and just is like flinging the sailing terms around on every page. But it was fun, and I do love it when Carolyn Keene, the group of writers who wrote the Nancy Drew books, I love it when she teaches us something, so like, for example, when you're reading a mystery that's set on a ranch and you learn about horseback riding, or when it's set at a yacht club and you learn about sailing. So I do love that. And sometimes, I read most of these when I was like 7 years old, 8 years old, and it was just so much fun during that time to have Carolyn Keene throw in a big, huge word that I had to look up in the dictionary. And this time around, it was obstreperous. So the criminal that they were trying to hold down was being obstreperous, and he got away. So I had to look it up again. It means noisy and difficult to control. But I'm sure I looked it up when I was little as well, like, Mom, Dad, what does obstreperous mean? And I was probably running to find the Webster's Dictionary. But anyway, this was a really fun one, and I recommend it. That is The Whispering Statue by Carolyn Keene. So now I'll be up to number 15. My next book in the series is The Haunted Bridge. That's everything I have for today. I hope you enjoyed it. I did read mostly, it looks like, children's books in the month of August. And I love doing that in August because August is kind of a relaxing time for me. I just want to enjoy and be a child and become immersed in the magic of summer while I still can. And so I often read children's works or middle grade books, things like that, in the month of August, just to be relaxing and laid back and just suspend my disbelief in the world outside and just have fun. Just have fun and relax and rejuvenate and restore and all of that good stuff. And I hope you had a good August too. I am looking forward to autumn very much. I'm ready for it. I've had enough of the heat and the humidity, and I'm looking forward to bringing you some autumn themed videos very soon. And we will see you again real soon. Bye-bye.